Hey there, boys and girls of the YouTube world. Today, the Duff Dog and I are going to see if we can't get this 1934 Ford chassis with a Buick Nailhead running for the first time in probably 40 years. So if you weren't aware, we picked this thing up at an auction, online auction in Wisconsin, probably 3-4 months ago. It's been sitting in the shed. We had to move some things around in the shed. I said, let's get after that. So we did a little digging. I ran the serial number on the frame. It was built in January of 1934. So it's not a low production. 34 Ford VIN numbers start in 457,000. This is a 600,000 VIN number. Guys get mad when I say VIN number. It's a VIN, because a VIN number would be vehicle identification number. I don't really care. And then they went through 1,234,000. So this is at the lower end of the spectrum, but since it was built in January, it was probably, you know, they started building 34s in late 33. And where you find the VIN on pretty much any Ford chassis from 1928 to 1948 is on the frame rail. So there's one stamped right here by the steering box, usually on the left-hand rail. It'll be right in front of the firewall. This one's kind of cut up right there for the steering box because they had to clear the starter on this Buick, so we didn't get that one, but it's usually stamped along the rail. There it is right there, and then there should be another one stamped back here. It's usually stamped in 3 spots. So before I left the auction, I asked, a few people what had gone on. It sounds like this guy had a old Cadillac building. It was a Cadillac dealership, and he had a bunch of these cool old cars stored in there. Unfortunately, the roof came in, as it is far too common here in the Midwest. This had a 34 5-window on it that he was driving into the 80s. Sounds like he had a lot of these cars. He had some Mortske, a lot of 58 Chevys. I can't even remember all what he had, but he had several 34s. And it damaged the body, so he sold the body off, and he kept the frame. There was another frame there with a hopped up flathead in it and stuff. And so yeah, this was a 34 Ford 5-window coupe before I got it. This frame is 33s and 34s are basically all the same. There's a couple of small differences. The frames are all the same, from pickups, sedans, coupes, roadsters, all the same. So that's the beauty of these early Ford chassis. You can put whatever you want on it. Even like 35/6 Ford frames, you can put a pickup on it, you can put a sedan, you can put a sedan delivery, you name it, they all interchange. So if we get this thing running and driving, we can drop whatever 33 or 34 Ford body that we can find, and it'll pretty much just drop right on there. So now that we know what the chassis is, let's take a look at the engine. Obviously, it's a Nailhead. You can tell by these tiny valve covers that are vertical. And also, someone was so kind to write it on this duct tape on the intake. This intake, casting numbers decodes as a 1963 401. This head casting number 1196914 decodes as a 1963 to 1966 364 401 425. And this engine block number 1196546-1 decodes as a 1961 401. So what we got is a 1961 block with probably a 1963 to 66 top end. So probably a 61 block and a 63 top end. So somebody's probably been in there and gone through it at one point. So maybe she's hopped up, maybe she's got a big cam, maybe she's bored out. Who knows? Well, let's move a little bit further back. And this is what sold me on this thing. Not just the Nailhead that was an old hot rod, but it was a stick. And you rarely ever find a stick behind a Buick, Olds, Pontiac, Cadillac. Maybe in a few Oldsmobiles, maybe in a few Pontiacs, but almost never behind a Buick or a Cadillac, unless they were some type of service car that was special ordered. I mean, it did happen, but it's pretty rare. Just knowing what I know about bell housings, this is an aftermarket unit. It is aluminum. There's no GM casting numbers on it. There is HD-25 stamped over here. Did a little search on the interwebs, and HD-25 is a Transdapt part number. I think Transdapt is still in business. Don't get me wrong. Don't take me for, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not sure, but I think they're still in business. There's a bunch of old catalogs floating around on the internet, and this is a 57 to 64 Buick engine adapter to a 1955 to 1964 Chevrolet transmission. So you can put everything from a Saginaw 3-speed to a Muncie 4-speed, and I believe you could put a T5 behind this thing, because You know, they didn't know the T5s were going to exist when they probably put this thing together in the 60s, but I think T5s are the exact same, and there's a bunch of other transmissions that'll probably bolt up, but pretty much your 55 to 64 Chevy 3 and 4 speeds is what you get. So coming back to this 3-speed, ran the casting numbers on the bottom. It's a 1957 Chevrolet Saginaw 3-speed. The one thing that's kind of janky about it is that 3-speed never was designed to have an engine or a transmission mount on it. So in order to resolve that, these guys welded this little transmission mount back here. It's really cobbly, but it works. Usually these transmissions would have a mount on the bell housing, one coming off this side, one coming off that side, and the engine would be all mounted and the transmission would be hanging freely. The funny part is the HD-25K is another variation of this adapter from the Transdapt catalog. You could get that adapter and that would have the bosses for mounting this properly. But anyway, it is what it is. Pretty crude. So unless you had a Corvette or maybe a really rare, like a 57 Chevy black window, it's going to be a column shift. So somebody converted this to a floor shift. I don't know what brand this floor shift is. It's not homemade. It's kind of looks like a universal fit type setup. You can tell they really butchered the cross member here to clearance for clearance.
2-4. We have clearance, Clarence. Roger, roger. What's our vector, Victor?
And yeah, this shift rod runs through there. It's really sloppy and it's not firm. And then to mount it to the transmission, a lot of these mounts will have like a U-bolt that goes over the transmission, which is pretty janky, but these guys just welded it straight to the cast tail shaft, which is super unapproved by me. And digging in even further here, I don't know what Duff's barking at out there, but they welded the linkages right to the shift shaft, so this thing can never come apart without cutting and ordering new parts or re-welding or whatever. So they pretty much screwed this up. You can see they welded a nut here on the clutch fork, and this is the factory Ford clutch rod. They modified that, so there should have been a rod that goes between these two. Here's a little bit further look at this clutch rod. You can see they welded this plate in there and this pivot shaft and all that. It's similar to what Ford would have had, but modified just enough. So that is the powertrain, drivetrain, Buick, Transdapt, Chevrolet that we got going on there. I think we ran the date code and it's like November of 57, November 11th, something like that. Coming back further to this rear end, this is the GM rear end. It's got the code stamped in here. It decodes it as a 55 through 57 Chevy. Try 5, 58s are interchangeable, but 58 64 would have mounts for coil springs. This would have been a leaf spring. There would have been brackets all over, and it would take a ton of cleaning to make this work. And then on the passenger side here, you can barely see it, but it says AA-220. So that decodes this thing as a manual transmission, 1955 or 56, 370 gear ratio. So she's a 370, 1955. The other thing tells us a 55 or 56 is there's no drain hole or drain plug on the bottom of the housing. 57s had that, 5s and 6 didn't. And then another thing here is it's got these wishbones that bolt onto the rear end. You can see they made these nice brackets there. And by nice, there might be some sarcasm there. But these are 35, 36 Ford wishbones. A lot of guys like those because they bolt on, and then they got the spring mount at the back. So that way you can pretty much drop any axle into your early Ford. And these are split. Usually these wishbones would come and they would meet right here on your torque tube because this is an open drive line. We don't have the torque tube. Kind of like that car. Those are unsplit. It's got a torque tube, all that good stuff. Would have had a banjo rear end. Some of the janky stuff that was done here is the brake line just wired up. It should have ran along the frame there and then had a tab there for securely mounting the hose. Still got the fuel line back here. The spreader bar is missing on the back. And then the spring, I don't know, it's the wrong spring, it's in the wrong location or what, but they cut out the cross member. I think it's because 34 springs have a curve to them, and they probably use like the 35, 36 spring, and it's straight, so it would fit in the center, but it would rub out here or vice versa, so they just butchered up the cross member. So if we're gonna put that on the road, we need to fix that. So rear wheels are 4 3/4 bolt pattern. They are a reversed wheel. And basically what reversing means is they knock the center out of the wheel and they flip it around. And the reason they do that is for this deep offset. Plus it's kind of cool looking and it's smooth. And you can also tell that they're reversed because there's no valve stem out here. It's still on the inside. And there it is, right there. Obviously 55 Chevys had juice brakes, so it's already set up for that. They did the white brake drums. They did the white valve covers. They did the white radius rods, wishbones, whatever you want to call them. Red transmission, a little bit of red on the engine, red wheels. These front wheels are reversed as well, but these should be a 5 on 5.5 bolt pattern. 34 Fords were mechanical brakes. 39 was the first year of hydraulic brakes. So somebody adapted some hydraulic brakes to this front axle. That being said, this front axle has been dropped. You can see where it's kind of stretched in there to get a little bit more drop out of the car. This is where the mechanical brakes would pivot, so it's still using early Ford spindles, and this would where your mechanical brakes, this should line up with this. That's how you can tell that it's dropped. What other things? It does not have a reversed eye spring. If they reverse the eye on the spring, you get a couple more inches of drop. The front cross member has been cracked out and re-welded. They did a really nice job of that. That was super common for that to happen, just banging up the terrible roads they had back in the 30s and 40s. It's got a tow bar. It's the right widths, and it's painted red, so I don't know if they took this car to the drags or why they would have a tow bar. A lot of welding going on there. It's pretty heavy duty, actually. Ooh, it's even got a safety chain. Safety first, right, Duff? So yeah, it's got some really crude engine mounts up here. You can see those there. They heated up the spindle steering arm, dropped that down for get their steering geometry. Probably heated up those arms to go over the top of the wishbone too when they dropped all that stuff. So that's way more information than you wanted to know. So next, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna spray a little lube in the cylinders because we really want this engine to be good, because I don't have another good 401 laying around. I do have another 401 that's laying in the weeds, so we stole the distributor out of that, and we're gonna use that distributor. We're gonna gut it, and we're gonna hopefully prime the oil pump on this one. But first things first, let's get to work, Wes. Let's pull the spark plugs, put a little Marvel or whatever we can find, and we'll just cram it down the cylinder holes. Call it good. Have I bored you, Duff? Yeah, I'm sure I have. Before I even started pulling those plugs out, I marked where number 1 was on the distributor cap. Tech tip of the day, these Buicks, or on any engine, it's the furthest forward cylinder. This cylinder is further forward than that one, so it's 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8. And the firing order on these Buicks is 1, 2, 7, 8, 4, 5, 6, 3. And these plugs all look really good. You got 44S ACs. They look a little fuely, but none of them look super rusty. There's like some white-ish humidity corrosion looking stuff in there. I'm guessing this building wasn't heated. They were in a cold storage, a newer building where we got it from, which sounds like they'd been for the last few years, but yeah. So let's find some oil to cram down there and go from there. A little Marvel. That should do the trick, right? Speaking of tricks, we need a smaller funnel. 3rd time's a charm. I suppose we should bore scope these holes before we dump a bunch of petroleum-based products in them. I can look in there. There ain't much to see. We're just gonna wing it. Per usual. Whoops. That one must be top dead center. Because, I mean, are you really getting anything done if you're not making a mess stuff? Probably not. Another reason I don't put oil in cylinders, because it's more of a mess. And it adds to the cost of these willet runs. I mean, what did Amazon just say? 10 bucks for a 32 ounces? This is a gallon. This is like $50 worth of Marvel right here. Or $50 worth when it was full anyway. I'm sure I bought it significantly cheaper than that. Son of a biscuit. Looky here, my KD Tools service kit, part number 41770, 3-piece oil pump primer kit. The small block Chevy primer works on a Buick. How neat is that, Duff? So, we're gonna hook our Milwaukee 3/8 drill up to this hot rod. Hopefully get some oil. Ooh, I can hear it pumping. Oh yeah, here we go. What I'm gonna do is just keep cranking this thing over until we get some oil coming out up here, because that's the last place that gets oil, right? The very top. You can see it running down the backside there, so it must be coming out in between the rocker shafts. Oh yeah, so you can see it coming out in between these rocker shafts. So it comes up, must come up these stanchions, and then it goes down the rocker shaft and then goes through the push rods, or vice versa. But we got all kinds of oil up here. You can see it just pouring out. Oh yeah, that one's like a steady stream. So is that one. Always good when you got plenty of oil on your top end. It's usually good to rotate the engine as you're doing this, or rotate it a little ways, because some parts have pressure at certain locations in the rotation. Schisms. Let's take a look at this driver's side. Make sure it's all... Oh yeah, she's running out on those two. That one. A little drip on that guy. Oh yeah, we don't even have to rotate this one over. She's getting all the lube on her top end. Good stuff. Good stuff. So you always want to do this just to make sure A, your oil pump's working, and that B, you know, those parts are the last parts to get oil on the top end there, so that they're lubed up before you even fire it up. Because otherwise you fire it up, they're going to run dry for a little bit. So, like I said, the reason we're doing this is because I'm assuming this is a good engine, and I don't have any other Buicks laying around. So if we grenaded this, I mean, if this were a small block Chevy, just your plain Jane, run-of-the-mill, 305, 350, wouldn't really care like we usually do on the wheel it runs. And plus, it's super easy to get at on this thing, so we may as well. And you're all getting an education too, right? Not all of you. I'm sure there's a lot of Dwaynes out there that know all this, and I'm doing it all wrong. But yeah, I think we are going to leave that oil in there because it's probably good old oil, and it all looked nice and dry inside, so there was much humidity. We'll probably fire it up, let it run a few heat cycles, and we'll drop it. And plus, it's got a Fram filter, so it's nothing but the finest. I think it's a pH 25. Yep, pH 25 Fram. Yeah, you can see that they painted the black and they painted right on the filter. So yeah, I think this thing just kind of got the aerosol overall. Oh, looks like we got that was our oil pressure. Oh yeah, sure enough, they just got her kinked off right there. And it's leaking, so I think we're gonna take that out. Maybe we'll put a gauge in it. Ooh, wouldn't that be neat, Duff?
How neat is that?
Should just be a pipe thread or some type of adapter, but yeah, let's see if we can find a gauge. And then we'll know just how much pressure we're spinning with the Milwaukee. And when it's running, hopefully, when we get to that point, because I'm sure it's gonna run. It's a GM, they just love to run. We got our little cheapy oil pressure gauge here. Let's see what happens. There you go. Looks like we got 25, 30 pounds oil pressure. Awesome. All right, let's drop our distributor back in. Before I pulled that distributor out, I put a little mark here on the vacuum advance to where the rotor was pointing. So if we drop it in the same way, we never turn the engine over. It should be right where it needs to be, provided it was in the right spot before we took it out. All right, took a trash bag, the industrial, ginormous, super 3mm thick ones. You know, you want to put a good bag on your engine because we don't want Marvel shooting all over the shop. So, and then I got a couple of them heavy duty hook magnets from the Amazonia so that the compression doesn't blow our bag out of the way. And I got 2 new battery cables. I got 1 ground wire bolted to the back of the head, and then I got power wire hooked to the starter. And I got our loser switch hooked up. Let's see if we can't get her cranking over with the old starter, because I don't have any abundant of spare starters for the old Nailheads either. Looks like old Lizard Larry is our battery sponsor this week. You can be a battery sponsor. Go check it out at mortskerepair.com. There we go. There's our ground wire. That's not very tight. Probably gonna have to get a wrench for that. Let's give the old loser switch a tap. Oh yeah. There's our oil pressure gauge hiding underneath here. Let's see if we get some oil PSIs cranking her over. Oh, don't do that to me, starter. Oh yeah, and we got a mist of marvel. A marvelous mist. Look at it just dripping down the bag and the frame rail. We'd have douched everything in the shop.
When something's gone wrong and it's the smell of your thong. Summer's Eve. Douche.
If we'd have not had that bag on there. And I know you can put the spark plugs in, but then we just get our spark plugs full of oil, and you don't want oily spark plugs. So that was my ingenious idea. Didn't cost me a whole lot. Sacrifice one trash bag, which we could probably use for something else if we were really that cheap. Tell you what, these hook magnet things from the old Amazonia are pretty dang good. And you could do a lot of things with them. It's actually holding up that Mortske banner up there. It's been doing a pretty good job of it too. And it's great for hanging things underneath your wildfire lift as well. Like lights or parts you want to paint, or tying up the wiring for the said lights underneath your wildfire lift. Yeah. All right, let's get some more floor dry and put some spark plugs in. Well, before we do that, let's get some sparkage. So we should just have to run a jumper wire to this guy, or just go straight to the coil. That's probably what we'll do. I'm gonna get a couple of roach clips and some 14 gauge wire and see if we got spark. All right, power wire's hooked up, see if we got spark. No spark. Let's use our screwed by Mortske repair screwdriver. Let's see if we can't give her the old Mortske flick. And I like doing this with power going to the points, but it's also a good way to shock yourself, which you folks thoroughly enjoy. Cheese and rice.
By the power of Grayskull.
Ow! Yep, it's got spark. Let's do it again. Ah! Ooh. She's a hot one. Now let's give her a whirl. 60% of the time, the Mortske flick works every time.
60% of the time, it works every time.
That doesn't make sense.
It's probably up to like 85% if you use the Mortske approved magnetic screwdriver. Get yours at mortske.com. All right, let's put some spark plugs in this thing and a cap and hook up some plug wires. Let's see what we got on here for a gasket. Oh, this looks like something metal. I don't suggest using your Mortske screwdriver as a pry bar, but when in Rome, yeah, we are getting rid of that. There's another layer. Oh, this was the expensive gasket back in the day. I'm trying to get the big pieces out of here so they don't drop down the intake. Just throw it right on the floor. Save that for later. Duff won't chew on it. Get the big chunks, then we'll come do the cleanup with our super scraper. I tell you to go to mortske.com and get your super scraper, but we are down to only having the SS5s in stock. Nothing wrong with them. They just take a little bit longer than the old SS1 here, but they work great on like small engines. These valve cover gaskets and such, but we do have those on hand. We're waiting on some SS1s and some SS5Ss. That's the problem when you got a good product like that. They just fly right off the shelf. Can't keep them on hand. We're going to take our new Felpro part number 1901 gasket. We're going to shmoo it with some petroleum jelly, so that way you don't have to scrape it next time. And it'll be ready to go on another engine. Because this carburetor is probably not going to be on here permanently. Speaking of carburetors, we scrounged up a 1407 Edelbrock that was last used on that 1962 327 300 horse, 350 horse Super Sport engine we had on our run stand a couple of years back from my old English teacher. Alrighty. The whole reason behind greasing these up so that it doesn't stick to the metal, the steel or aluminum, and you can reuse it if you're into swapping intakes or carburetors or what have you. All of the shenanigans. Here is the aforementioned Edelbrock 1407. Line up our holes. Looks like everything cycles fine, so let's find some 5/16 hardware and bolt that son of a biscuit down. Duff, you think that mechanical fuel pump's gonna work? Snowball's chance in hell. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. Another reason, you know, that this might be a good engine, when they tape stuff up like that. I'm sure it's all dried out. So we're just gonna put a clickety-clack, go right up to our fuel inlet, find out the float's stuck, see that it's pumping fuel everywhere, and give it a tap and unstick the float. Foreshadowing? What do you think? Let's give her a whirl. Here goes nothing. Hey, it's not spewing gas all over. Well, I guess let's hook up to our ignition source. Then we're gonna be smart and try to save the mess, and we're gonna roll it back just a little bit so we don't blast that floor dry everywhere. Another reason I hate floor dry. Got a battery sitting on a milk crate over here. So if we set that on the frame rail, it'll roll with the frame. Also, the clickety-clack doesn't have wire. There we go. Alright. Talk about like the handiest thing ever. You can use it as a step ladder. You can use it as a stool. You can use it as a toolbox. You can use it as a battery box. So versatile. Alright, ignition hooked up, clickety-clack hooked up. Slingshot, engage.
Slingshot engaged.
Are we getting fuel? No. Why not? It appears our accelerator pump isn't working, so instead of getting that working or swapping carburetors, we're just gonna force feed it some fuel. Now let's see what happens. Slingshot engage. Well, she runs. We better open some doors though. So now you say, but Mortske, what are you gonna do with that 34 Ford chassis? Well, as you guys know, I'm a pickup guy, and 34 Ford pickups are significantly cheaper than sedans and coupes and roadsters. And what's the same as a 34 pickup? 34 trucks. So this is probably the best one I got. This one was just a straight truck chassis, and I put a fuel tanker on the back because I thought it looked cool. And it's probably got the most paint and best patina, but it's kind of rough like all of them. Let me show you. So they're notorious for cracking out around the door hinges. So you can see this one's been oxyacetylene welded there, but it really ain't too bad. 32 truck cabs and all that'll interchange. The grills are slightly different. The cabs, there's some slight variations, but for the most part, they're all the same. Driver's door on this thing is pretty dang nice. Most of the time, they're missing up in this country because guys would pick corn with them in the winter, and then they would just take the door off, and who knows where all the doors went. But this hinge has been welded. They cut this door open because apparently it wouldn't open one time, and of course, you know, they had to cut it right in the belt line, so that needs to be fixed or not. And of course they did it with a torch because cordless tools didn't exist, and they're always beat in the back, and the roof's usually beat up. But that's what I'm thinking, one of these guys. Then we need a box, or we can just put a keg on the back or build our own box, but it's not really my jam.
It's not my jam. I don't buy jam, I buy honey, and I kiss it on the lips.
So here's my only option for a 34 car body. Is this two-door sedan. I think it's a 33 model. Anyway, it's pretty hammered out here. And then this whole side is just kind of missing, as well as the floor. And the cowl is all buggered up. So this one's probably beyond our skill level. And then we got this guy. Can't remember where this one come from. Minnesota somewhere? No, Pembina. Went up to Pembina to get it. And that was a truck as well. I don't think I've ever even had a pickup. Cowl's pretty good on this one. They'll rot down at the bottom of the cowl. This door is a little rotten in the bottom. She's a little buggered up back here. Back of the cab's a little hooeyed up. Top of the cab. And it's missing the driver's door. And then we got this one. I think this one came from Chin's grandpa. This one's a little more hammered on the top. She's been welded. The back of the cab to the top of the cab. Big hole back there. She just all around beat. I think the 33s and 34s had this 3 belt lines, 32s only had 2, and then early 33s maybe. And then 32s get a different dash and firewall, same as the cars. I do have a driver's door that come off of this one, or maybe it came off of that one. It probably came off of that one. I don't know. I got a spare driver's door, but it's not real great either. And this one's pretty hammered out there in the belt line. So, yeah, we got pieces. But wait, there's more. If you remember, we went to an auction. I don't remember where it was. Chin remembers where it was because it was up in his wheelhouse, one of his old neighbors. Where did this dust cap come from? It's had a rough life. We're gonna end its life. We'll put it in a scrap dumpster. But anyway, Georgeson, I think was the gentleman's name. We went up to an auction there. That's where we picked up that 64, 5, 6 Chevy half-ton long box, and we buffed that thing out and lowered it and all that good stuff. But also while we were there, we got this guy. This thing's got, that other truck over there's got a V8. This is a 4-cylinder truck. She's got some rust down there. See, this one's got the rear end ain't in it. Back of the cab and the roof ain't that bad. Probably the best driver's door out of the whole fleet. And yeah, the fenders on trucks are bigger, so we're just gonna get rid of those. So maybe this will be the one we start with. We can bang that dent out of the hood. We might have bunged up the door, shoving it around the yard. So yeah, that's another reason to cut this thing up. So we quit shoving it around the yard. Do something with it. And it's all pretty much there. Figured we'd give you a little peek of what we got going on in the shed out here. I gotta make some notes so I can create some labels and laminate them so I can stick to these crates. But anyway, we got our wood kind of stuck in its place-ish. If we could get rid of those, I don't know, whatever they are, more than 10 foot 4x4s, we could slide that whole thing all the way in there. I'd kind of like something vertical, some vertical storage. So if you know of vertical lumber storage solutions, let me know. Send us a link, mortskerepair@gmail.com. But anyway, these crates work really well. Chin picks these up at work for us. And we got LS stuff, and we got 3-speed Ford transmission stuff, and GM automatic transmission stuff, and Olds rockets, and Cadillac overhead valve, and Catalyst out transmissions, and starters, and alternators, and small block stuff, and air cleaners, and rear end stuff, and miscellaneous stuff from auctions. We got exhaust manifolds and exhaust pipes. But yeah, we're gonna make some labels and laminate them and stick them to these things, so you can just look at what they are and climb up there and grab whatever you need. And then we don't need any racking on those to in between them, because these are wide enough to span the entire distance. So yeah, we gained a lot of room, got a lot of stuff off the floor. It'd be nice if we could put all those crates up there. It's really hard to get at stuff in the corner over there to get in there with the skid steer. We lost the footage, but I've got another truck in the trees that we got from the Arden Georgeson estate sale in Heimdall, North Dakota. We're right on the edge of Heimdall, North Dakota. Anyway, I couldn't show you the walk around that because the GoPro decided to do non-GoPro things. But anyway, we grabbed that thing with the telehandler. We brought it up front. We popped the hood off, the grill off, the radiator off. And now let's very, very, very carefully pop the rest of the sheet metal off so that we can get that cab and put on our hot rod chassis. Yeah, I get upset when the camera doesn't do camera things too, Duff. Why is your tail wagging? How fast can it go? Can you make it go faster? Go faster. Go fast. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Back to work. Have you been rolling anything stinky lately? Yes. Yes, you have. Well, how many did we forget, Duff? That side looks good. There we go. Now you just gotta get yourself a telehandler to lift it off. No cab fires like the last time. Oh, thanks for telling me that thing's on fire. I'm gonna enjoy my Point Lakeside in my magnetic Mortske can koozie in celebration of getting that cab loose and not dying yet. We're gonna need another Lakeside. We didn't show it, but we vacuumed the cab out. There's a lot of crap behind the seat. Dirt and such. And then a lot of other stuff that it wouldn't pick up. And by pick up, I meant the rigid vacuum cleaner. Thanks to everybody who recommended that thing. That thing really sucks, and in a good way. Look at all this goodies we found behind the seat. Rat tail file. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spark plugs, and I'd already pulled 3 out before, so an extra 3 sets of spark plugs. Yeah, but looks pretty good. Maybe I should unbolt that seat riser fuel tank thinger. We'll just leave it in there for now for mock-up. Some of the wood braces for the back of the seat were pretty rotten. That one's still good enough for a pattern, but I think we're gonna blast this thing out. A little pressure washing, Puddin's Fab Shop style. We don't need to show you that. You can go to his channel if you want to watch pressure washing, hanging stuff up on walls, and whatever it is he does or doesn't do over there. So I'm gonna clean this mess up, pressure wash it, let it dry, hopefully get it inside because it's a little bit overcast, so I think it's gonna get wet today. We're gonna get wet, Duff. and you're gonna be a stinky wet dog. But we'll get this thing cleaned up and get her inside. Maybe start doing some mocking up. You gonna try to suck start this thing too, like you did the old Mercury? Like, are you gonna suck the mice out of that tailpipe? Just breathe it all in. Take it all in, pal. We're changing her up a bit. I figured that cab, the doors are just gonna be in the way, and that passenger one's probably gotta come off anyway and get some body work done to it. So, I got this cab that was Chin's grandpa's. We drug this in, doors are already off of it. We're gonna knock the ugly off it, like these turn signals and the battery box and a couple other trinkets. And then we'll use this for mocking up so it's easier to climb in and out. Because the big thing that we gotta figure out is the steering, because the frame is all hacked up. We don't have a steering box. I don't know what they use for a steering box. So I've got a stock 34 steering box and an F1 box. I got an F100 box, but that's gonna be way too big. And I can see why. So there's an F1 box, and we would have to put the box, we'd have to make a boxing plate way outside of the frame rail to get that thing to fit in there with the starter there. Here's a 34 box, and that's, I'm guessing, what they had on here. And I can sneak it up in there, but I don't know how they had mounted it. I could go with like a Vega or a Corvair. Corvair box, they're a little bit light. A Vega would be a cross steer, so then we'd have to change spindles and all that geometry, so I'm gonna try to make something work, but we gotta get a cab on here and see where everything lines up. But I think we're gonna have to go with that 34 box. And we might have to make some modifications, whether it be to the frame or to the steering box or something, but I wanna keep it original, and I don't wanna put like a cowl steering or nothing in it, which is cool, but it's just a lot of work and we don't get anything done. So stuff like this takes forever. But I'm gonna strip that cab a little bit, get a couple of odds and ends off that thing, and then we should be able to set her in place. And then I'll be mad because the cab's in the way. Such is life. Cool. Hold that there. I wonder if these holes are the same width as those. So if we move that grill back, but then I think the grill would sit higher than the cowl. It'd be sitting like this. I think it's sitting, I think she's sitting about on the same plane right now. Yeah, and if you moved it up there, you'd never get a radiator in there. Yeah. It's already probably gonna be, it's already gonna be too tight for a mechanical fan. Tech tip of the day, don't cut the exhaust off your 1999 Pontiac Trans Am. Motorcycle season's about over. We got the top on the Bronco now, because fall is here. All right, we got this 32 bed in here, and the more I look at it, I don't know if it's a 32 bed or not. The wheel isn't gonna be centered, even with our, we're gonna have to push our cab back like another, I don't know, what was that dimension, Duff? I don't know, like 6 inches. So I don't know, maybe this is a Model A box. Either way, we got it. It's just sitting here bolted to this trailer that we don't use as a trailer, so at least it'll get all the parts in one pile. Let's mock it up. I do have like a 35 or 36 Ford bed. 35 to 37 are all pretty much the same. And that's like 7 inches further back the other way. So that wheel well wouldn't line up either. And I'd rather sacrifice this one because I don't have any 32 pickups yet. But I do have a bunch of 35 to 40 stuff, so I could piece one of those together. But anyway, if you got a 33 or 34 Ford pickup bed, or just any early Ford pickup bed like this, and you want to part with, hit us up, mortskerepair@gmail.com. Anything from, and even F1, I don't know, if you got an old Ford bed, like Model T through, gosh, they're the same all the way up to 79, but whatever. If you got a bed, hit us up, mortskerepair@gmail.com, because we're always looking for them, especially these early Fords, like, you know, like a 28 through 40 bed. Seems like they're really hard to come by in these parts. And plus, we got a lot of trucks, like big trucks, and you can take those and put on a car chassis. And if you got a bed, you can make a pickup. Basically what we're doing. It looks like it's just welded on this cross member up here, and then probably one on the back. But I gotta sweep these, I don't know, pine cones. Gotta sweep these pine cones out of there. And then we'll get this thing loose and we'll get her looking more pickup-ish. Is that a word? It is now. Reached out to our pal Titus on the old Instagram, and he verified, yes, that is in fact a 32 box, and 32 frame rails are narrower. And that being said, 32 Fords are like the Cobras of early Fords, or the 57 Chevys, or the 69 Camaros, or the 69 Mustang fastbacks, or whatever. So I can't cut that box up, and it would still be wrong anyway. So we'll put together a 32 pickup someday. You know, I got a frame, I got a grill. Really all I need is the right cab, and a 33 or 34 cab would be good enough. So what I do have, I thought about dragging that 35 box out, but I got all the stuff to do like a 35, 36. I got this old Chevrolet box. I think it's like a 29, 30, 31, 32 Chevrolet. It was at a salvage yard that we got a bunch of stuff out of years ago. It was sitting there, it was on a pickup. The pickup was gone. That's the problem with Chevrolets, is we call them termite castles because they're so full of wood. When the wood dilapidates, the body just falls in on itself. And the bed was literally the only good part. We talked to the gal, and she said, oh yeah, I'll sell the bed off that. So I bought the bed and brought it home. And we also bought a Sun scope motor tester. I just wanted the stand off of this. Obviously that's all wasted. This was actually in the scrap pile. Looks like we're missing all the wheels but one, so we'll probably just pop that single wheel off. Maybe I got this for the wheels and put on mine, I don't remember. But anyway, it's pretty cool cabinet. It's too bad it's in such tough shape. They had that cool blue paint on them originally. Anywho, let's get that out of there, and let's get that box off the old 34. I measured this one. It should be wide enough. Length is going to be close. And the cool thing about this Chevrolet is they just bolted this fender whatever deal on there, and the bead actually goes the whole way, so you can put that wherever you want, or you can just take it off, as I think what we'll do, and then mock it all up. It doesn't have a marking on the tailgate or anything, so it's gender neutral. Is that what we're calling this? I don't know. All right, I'm gonna see if I can get Mojo to help me get this thing out of there, and we'll go from there. Oh, cabinet should be light. Lift with your back, not with your legs, right? So this thing would have been pretty sweet if it was in good shape. It's got the old combustion booster unit on it. Pretty sure that's a Turbski, but she's seized. I've never been rich, so clearly that gauge is pegged over to poor. I don't know what's going on there. 8s and 6s, we don't mess around with 4 cylinders. Look at this. I don't know what was going on in here, but got a set of Delco points in there. Whatever gauge that was for. secondary resistance, engine vacuum. Yeah, these things were the cat's pajamas. Unfortunately, it's pretty much scrap now. I'll steal this cast aluminum top. They're worth a few bucks, plus they look cool on the wall, which is probably why they're worth a few bucks. And I think the rest, unfortunately, is going in the scrap pile. You want to lift that out of there for me, pal? Be cool to fix this up into a rolling toolbox cabinet cart, kind of like those carts over there. But I'm sure we'll never get to it. This tube got a little whammied. Otherwise, she ain't too bad. I think I'm gonna try to get that wheel off there so it'll sit flat on the ground. Should just pop out of there, right? Like the other three did. You know how to run one of them?
Let's go.
One of these.
I had one.
You had one?
I had one. A little bit smaller than that one.
Look at that, it's got the combustion booster. You just turn that knob up and all of a sudden you get more combustion. Don't look so bad, huh? Better than that other one. Can Linda sew? We're gonna need a seat pretty quick.
Yep, very quick.
Oh my goodness, doesn't that look so much better? Got her set, I mean, better than the 32 box. And you can hardly tell where that wheel arch was, so it's pretty swanky as far as that goes. And this will be just a good filler until we find the right 33, 34 box. This is always gonna bother me just a little bit. It sits lower, we didn't have to cut up that 32 box. The wheel arch thing is no longer a problem. We can modify it all we want, and we're not really out anything because it's a Chevrolet bed, which unfortunately there isn't much demand for. I do have a 34 or 5 Chevy truck out back that we could make into one, but like I said, it's full of wood, so we don't like termite castles. We need to massage the back of the cab, and since this isn't the cab we're probably going to use, we need to massage the front of the box before we dictate where everything sits. But we closed up that gap right there between the frame. We got a little bit of gap back here. I think it needs to come down a hair. And there's this screw right here and this little bitty bracket right there. So I think we're gonna take that screw out, and that should get the box down right where it needs to be. You can see it can come down about another inch there and sit on that frame rail. And then we'll be sitting pretty. I don't like that you could see these. I think the 34 Ford boxes are a little bit higher, but I do like that you can see the belt lines, because wasn't that other one sitting like way up there? Look at that, you can still see some hints of original pinstriping. Cool. Yeah, it looks way better. Length is about perfect. It could maybe be a little bit shorter, but I actually like boxes that kind of hang over the back like that. Long bed life, plus it's more usable space. So yeah, cool. All right, I'm gonna cut those screws off and we'll get her set down and clamped in place. Oh boy, howdy. She looks pretty good, I'd say. Went and dug the doors for this cab out of my attic. This door's really chewy. Driver's door's not much better, but she looks like something. Yeah. Can't read what it says on that door. Glasgow, Montana? Something. But yeah, you can see, jeez, real soft. And this cab is super crooked. There's a bunch of like wood and stuff sandwiched in the back of the cab to the structure. Oh well, is what it is. Like I said, well, I just kind of want to use this one for mock-up because she's pretty chewy. You can see that door's been patched up there. It's pretty solid, but yeah, you got to really lift up on the door to get it to line up with the cab. She's crooked. You can see just how Swiss cheesy that door is. The driver's door is definitely the better of the two. But I think that's where we're gonna wrap her up. We got this 1934 Ford pickup. We had a 34 Ford hot rod chassis we got out of Wisconsin with a Buick Nailhead and a Tri-5 Chevy 3-speed and a Tri-5 Chevy rear. We got that running. And then we took apart a 34 Ford truck, and right now all we're using is the grill, but we'll end up using that cab. We got it all cleaned up. We put a 32 bed on it. We found out that that doesn't fit, so we got ourselves a Chevrolet bed. And now we gotta get it all mounted up. Gotta figure out what we're gonna do for steering. Like I said, it's probably gonna be a Vega steering. And a Vega is gonna be a cross steer, so we gotta put different spindles, and because it's got a drop axle, we gotta heat up the spindles, and it's just a bunch of work. And it's stuff that is really taxing on the mind. It's shift change, so everybody's driving by, sure enough. So, yeah, and nobody really wants to watch all that stuff, so we'll see. Will I get burned out here? Will I just put it in the corner? Who knows? I had to keep this chassis inside because that engine, we got to keep that from getting full of water and all that, so I figured since I'm storing a chassis inside, I might as well store a really cool pickup inside, and we could still put that other cab in the box of this and have it pretty much all inside. And somebody could see the light of the day. Or I could see the light of the day. It gets me kind of excited about it. So hopefully you guys will keep me excited about this project. Maybe we'll keep plugging away at it. Or maybe somebody really wants to own it. Price and availability listed in the video description. I really don't want to get rid of this one. And 34 Ford stuff is not cheap. So we shall see. But anyway, go check out the merch. Mortske.com. We got some fresh stuff coming down the pipeline. We got shirts. We got can koozies. We got banners. We got decals, we got screwdrivers, we got keychains, we got air fresheners. You name it, we got it. Everything you need to outfit your shop and to be the hack mechanic that we are. So yeah, go follow us on Instagram, Mortske_repair, I think. I don't know, there's probably only one Mortske repair on Instagram. We got a Facebook fan group page if you're into that stuff. People sharing the same memes over and over and over again. They're funny the first time, and then after that, not so much. But remember, it doesn't matter how you get it done as long as you're having fun. Pontiac engines are fun, aren't they, Mojo?